Welcome to the podcast. Today we have an incredible guest who brings a wealth of expertise at the intersection of law, cybersecurity, and technology. Jita Shivaranthan is an internationally experienced data protection, cybersecurity, and technology advisor, as well as a qualified lawyer with former Big Four partner experience as well. With a deep understanding of global regulations, emerging tech risks, and the legal challenges shaping the digital landscape, she has played a pivotal role in advising businesses on cybersecurity, data privacy, and compliance. Geeta, it's an absolute honor to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Is there anything I've missed that you want to tell us about as well?
No, I think you've covered it. You've made me sound better than I feel like I am.
Well, because you're just incredible that I don't know if I can top that. So why don't we start with our first question, if I may. How can legal professionals build a career in technology law or cybersecurity law?
Yeah, this is a great question, Victoria, and I think it reflects how dynamic the legal profession is and underpins the necessity for lawyers to remain at the forefront of societal change. I think together with the transition to the digital economy, the increase in the use of technology and technological advances such as AI, we've seen a whole new plethora of legal frameworks being born in the last 10 years. For new lawyers looking to get into the space and practicing lawyers to further specialize, I think it's really important to define what type of law one wants to practice. Historically, technology lawyers sat in the commercial and IP departments, really focusing on contractual and IP issues. And most data protection lawyers were part of employment teams because that's where the majority of data was really used in businesses. Now, obviously, that's changed in terms of how businesses operate and how they use data. It's now more of an asset. But there are also, several legal frameworks and regulatory frameworks which govern various aspects of technology that we've seen come about. So we've got data protection regulations, cybersecurity frameworks, risk management frameworks, and these have all created opportunities for new specialisms for technology lawyers to evolve and become regulatory lawyers, having a greater focus on compliance and risk rather than on transactional work. From my perspective, first and foremost, lawyers looking to build a career in these areas need to understand not only the legal framework related to the technology, but also how the technology itself works to be able to truly advise. Like, we can't advise in a silo of the black and white regulation. It has to be applicable to the technology. I think a starting point for professionals looking to focus and specialize will be to look at the regulatory and legal framework. So for data privacy in Europe and the UK, the GDPR, or in the US, the state regulations and hopefully the federal regulations coming soon. Use cybersecurity regulations, the NIST framework or ISO, AI frameworks and standards, which are both at a regulatory level in the EU, but also at a sector level in the UK with the FCA having specific guidance. And then obviously looking at the IP issues. So it's really, really broad. To help with that though, there are sector-specific certifications like CIPPE through the IAPP for privacy law. There's the CISSP for cybersecurity and CISM for risk management. And all of these kind of ancillary sector-specific certifications add to credibility and help you gain experience. I think working closely with client teams, technology teams, and cybersecurity teams allow for, advisors to get a different lens on the risks and the landscape that our clients are operating in. So it's a real partnership there. And then finally, working with your networks, really lean into those networks because, it's constantly changing. And so being at the forefront of that regulatory change, hearing about them from other people and other people's takes is really important to being able to form your own view of how those risks should be managed.
Okay, thank you so much for that. There's a lot of information there. I think for anyone that's looking to break into tech and cybersecurity law as well, there's a lot of things that you said about understanding the regulations, about it being hands-on experience, about it also being about networking as well. You also mentioned about certifications. While that's always great, the hands-on understanding and the working with businesses as well is also equally important there as well. So thank you very much for that. Right, we're going to go into the second question. So what are the biggest legal challenges facing women in the tech industry right now?
Yeah, and this question, I guess I'm going to split into two.
Okay.
And so, you know, I don't think there are legal challenges facing women in the tech industry per se, but generic challenges that are facing women in the legal profession. And I think these are very similar to other sectors. And we've been speaking about them, you know, for a while, right? The World Economic Forum just released their gender gap report for 2024, really noting that gender parity seems to be out of reach for another 5 generations. Like, that's crazy to me, right? Like, we've been on this journey of workplace equity and challenges relating to being considered for leadership promotions or equal pay. And those, you know, they do still exist and are probably more apparent to women in law, as that balance of traditional gender roles at home, you know, still really compete with the work expectations and requirements in senior roles. I think in addition to those that we know of, you know, it's those like having a lack of role models. And, you know, with any career path and personal goal, we all need a role model that inspires us and that makes us think, I can do that, you know. And to date, privacy and data protection practices in particular perhaps have been more balanced on that gender split than, you know, private equity or M&A. However, as that career path becomes more sexy, that is being eroded. And I think it's important for young female professionals to find a role model, but also for those who've been through it to bring juniors along. And so this ties into, you know, sponsoring and mentoring opportunities, which I know your network is, you know, very supportive of, and that's just great work. And I think looking at the second part, so looking at legal challenges in tech law more generally, I think first and foremost, you know, lawyers are navigating such a complex patchwork of privacy laws and related frameworks to support clients in their compliance. And these frameworks may vary from sector agnostic laws, such as the GDPR, to sector specific laws, such as PSD2 security standards in financial services, that's updated now, and laws like health data, or laws relating to health data like HIPAA in the US. I think also understanding emerging risks, right? Technology lawyers need to be updated in the technology, and it's constantly changing. And so being able to understanding the technology itself, those use cases, and being able to apply that to the frameworks to define new risks is really, really important. And I just, you know, so that change of technology is one. And then on the flip side, you have the evolving regulatory framework. So you've got two things that are almost moving beasts that you need to keep on top of. And so it is very dynamic, but very exciting.
No, I definitely agree with you. I think it's so important to be able to understand that having cybersecurity law is just not in its own little area. It's such a wider spectrum that you need to be aware of, even though that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be the person that knows everything. But it's important to be able to know that, okay, if you're working on cybersecurity law or you're working on cybersecurity, data privacy law, there's a merger there, you know, and then it's just having to understand what the balance looks like.
I think that's absolutely it, right? So one of the biggest things is not assuming that you know everything, right? And because that's where the risk happens. It's being able to put up your hand and say, "Ooh, we may need another, advisor here on this piece because that's not necessarily my wheelhouse." And I think, with that change in legal frameworks, we've also seen new roles and jobs come up, right? So when we're talking about cybersecurity and privacy professionals, it's not to think that there necessarily has to be a traditional path. For example, with the GDPR, we saw this role of the DPO being born. And so that data protection officer role really is a new role from the GDPR. And I think we will continuously see change and new roles being created for people to manage these technology risks as they come about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So our next question, how can legal professionals add value to tech and cybersecurity teams?
Yeah, this is a great question, right? Because I think lawyers and, are often seen as, the bods in the back, right? Writing the contracts and, writing the policies, and it's really quite separate. And
that's where you sit.
Yes, exactly. And I don't necessarily think that's reflective of how the new legal advisor needs to operate in this space. And so, I think the role for the legal advisor to add value to those teams is to help bridge the gap and translate the risks to other stakeholders like management and or boards to help get sponsorship and funding, for things like compliance programs or enhanced security measures, etc. I think, one of the other areas, in addition to that translation of, needs for those teams and being an advocate for those teams, is sometimes putting the reins on those teams, right? Like tech teams and developers are always so excited about the new flashiest thing, and that's great, but they're so used to running in sprints and quite quickly that they may put the company in risk without knowing. And so I think helping to educate as to how the legal frameworks apply to what they are doing is also the role of the legal advisor in that way. You then have the more traditional roles of the lawyer, which are contracts and compliance and vendor agreements and, bolstering protections in that way. But that also requires, listening to those stakeholders so they can tell you what the risks are. You can't draft a clause without understanding what you're drafting. So it's a conversation. And then, you have also incident management, which is working with those teams in the event of a breach, and I think the breach is now inevitable. It's not if, it's when. And being able to build those relationships so that, you can respond quickly and accurately as an advisor, put your client in the best position in front of a regulator if it needs to be notified, and to have those conversations without opening themselves to unnecessary regulatory scrutiny. And so I really do think increasingly the technology lawyer is a partner to those businesses rather than to, the legal practice or whoever else in the in-house function.
That is such an important perspective. It's you explaining all of that just shows that lawyers are not only just advisors, they're actually strategic partners who help companies navigate that complex risk and regulations as well. It's about working together to be able to understand, as you've rightly explained, that they won't be able to understand the risk without actually working with the relevant teams, within the business, to understand that, okay, right, here's some of the challenges we may be facing, and they'll be able to then explain that from a legal perspective, that, okay, right, these are your potential risks if it happens, and these are the potential risks if it doesn't. So so that they're aware of that. And I suppose that also goes hand in hand with not only the business side, but also third party vendors as well, when you're leading it to DORA as well. I don't want to go too much into it, but it really just shows that how important especially when we're calling them data privacy lawyers or cybersecurity lawyers, they're really needed for that strategic support.
Absolutely. And I think, you mentioned it, so I'm going there. Operational risk and resilience, is a big concern or challenge in the digital economy, because we're so connected. And, so being able to translate those standards of compliance to protect from the risk all through the chain is so incredibly important. And I think really, talking about opportunities and where these professions may go, that is a whole profession in and of itself, managing operational resilience. And the bedrock of that is understanding, well, what is the framework that we have to work against to ensure compliance around operational risk?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Thank you so much. I'm learning so much. I'm noting everything that
this is not legal advice. Please.
I know who I'm calling.
Yes.
So we'll go into our fourth question. What advice do you have for women who want to transition into tech-focused legal roles?
Yeah, and so I think, we've spoken about some of these before. So I think for me, the first one is really developing that technical literacy. Allow yourself to understand the frameworks, the risks, the basics, and then, find a mentor to help you develop your understanding and, enhance your network, gain certifications, as we said. And then if you have never been in this space, but it's a place that interests you, put up your hand for a project and get the experience. It's as simple as that. You got to put yourself out there, to be able to learn. And I think unless we put our hands up, we don't grow, and put ourselves in a position of vulnerability to learn. You have to start somewhere. Everyone has. And so you're not going to be expert from day one, and that's okay. I think the really interesting thing about technology law at the moment and privacy is that really these are developing frameworks. And so we're learning together. This is not something that, it's entrenched for 100 years and there's loads of precedent. No, that's not it. We are definitely learning together. And I think the younger generation of lawyers almost has an advantage because they are digital native. And so, that provides for an inherent understanding that, not to age myself, but someone like me who struggles with Zoom and Word may not naturally have, right? So have some confidence in the skills that you have naturally, not necessarily just what you've learned from your professional experience.
Those are quite incredible and actionable advice as well. So thank you very much. So our last question, what future opportunities exist for women in tech law and cybersecurity law as well?
Oh, they're endless. No.
I
really do think they are endless because and constantly changing. I think the important thing here is not to see yourself as limited. The world of opportunity in breadth of opportunity is there. So it's really what will an individual thrive at. So you can go working towards a role like your chief privacy officer or DPO, your data protection officer, which is compliance at a global level or a corporate level. You have legal consultants or cybersecurity consultants, so advising on risk management, data breaches, regulatory frameworks. You can move more into ethics with AI and, help to develop frameworks relating to bias and risk management. You have then policy and government roles. And, those roles are really interesting. There you're actually helping to shape what the legal framework will look like, and not just looking at specific issues, but broad issues across multiple sectors. And then, there's the in-house legal role, which is always very, very interesting. And, I would say you won't just get pigeonholed to cybersecurity and data, although that is a day job in and of itself.
Yes.
You'll still be involved in the M&A activities because, as I said, data is an asset. And so that's increasingly becoming something relevant in M&A. Insolvency, all of those different areas of corporate law, we're seeing protection and cyber issues being thrown up. And so I think there's a real opportunity across the board for data technology and cyber professionals.
Amazing. I really like the fact that there are so many career paths that widen the scope of what that looks like for anyone at whatever level. I know a friend of mine who is starting off as a paralegal, and she's always feeling, but that's going to take me ages to be a lawyer. And I said, no, but being a paralegal is a great starting point because to do the research, understand what's going on, and then, it's a stepping stone. That is key, is that where do you start from? So this understanding is really helpful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Are there, any key takeaways you'd like to share with the audience at all? Anything you feel we've missed?
I think my biggest takeaway is be open to the opportunities and know that change is inevitable. And so law has always been and will continue to be a dynamic place to build your profession. And so that network will remain of the utmost importance to ensure that, you are continuously learning and growing.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Jita, this has been such an insightful conversation. Your expertise both in tech law and cybersecurity has given us a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this space. So I want to thank you for sharing your insight into not only, I guess, into the profession, but also into what you do on a day-to-day basis as well, what is expected of your role on a day-to-day basis. So really, really thankful for that. So for the listeners if you're looking to get into cybersecurity or tech law, remember, build your technical literacy, network with the right communities, and stay ahead of emerging regulations as well. Jita, before we wrap up, where can our audience connect with you or learn more about your work?
Sure. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always open to speaking to new people and expanding my network.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much again. So we're going to wrap up now. And until next time, hopefully we'll see you again soon. But we want to definitely thank you for having you here, and also for you sharing your expertise as well again. Thank you
so much, Victoria. All the best.
Okay. Bye.